Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Lackawanna City Council June 21st, 2022 caucus. This is an opportunity for council members to discuss or debate or ask questions relative to the items on the city's agenda, on the city council's agenda. Would also like to welcome the various department heads as well as the public at large. In reviewing the agenda, the items, initial items are administrative up until communications from the council number 6. We are, due to some exigent circumstances, going to take items 7, 8, and I believe item 9 was withdrawn relative to communications from the Director of Recreation, Brian Laxo. Brian, do you wish to address these issues, 7 and 8 at least?
Yes. I mean, the first one is pretty self-explanatory. We have, in discussions with the mayor, decided that it would be nice to refurbish basketball courts in each of the 4 wards. This would accomplish 3/4 of that goal, with the 4th potentially being at Franklin Playground in the grander scheme of things over there. Just looking to bring those basketball courts up to date. They've been neglected for quite some time.
The director, the money for that is coming from?
The plan, I believe, is for that to come from the American Rescue Funds, a portion of those to go towards the rehabilitation, as that was deemed something that would be beneficial to all.
Okay, anything you want to continue with?
Yeah, I'm sorry, going on to number 8. The fire department asked me if for my advice on how to proceed with getting the council's request for this. So it somehow ended up on my desk, even though this is a fire department event. We have no conflicting events at the Veterans Stadium for their 100th annual firefighters ball. So I asked that that be approved by the council.
And Brian, the 100th anniversary is going to be an outside event?
Apparently, again, the planning of the event does not fall upon my department. They just were asking me for use of the grounds. I'm kind of interested to see how they go about this as well.
Thank you.
And as you said it earlier, there was scheduling conflict with some of the youth groups holding chicken barbecue fundraisers during the same time period. So the LA Sports Club has revoked their request in order not to over congest the public's fundraising abilities.
Okay, thank you. Any member of the council have any questions or issues to direct to the Director of Recreation, Brian Laxo, on his items 7, 8, and 9?
Yes, I do, Council President.
Yes, sir.
Something that I've been pushing the last few years, Brian, get some of these basketball courts redone. Thank you for taking the initiative, you and the mayor, and then I was in the budget hearings. We were going over the money, CARE Act money.
Yes.
And it's good. Maybe now we can do 1 or 2 every year, you know, and keep up on them.
With the preliminary discussions we've had, that's exactly the sort of thing we've spoken about. We could get a block of them done at once, and then 1 at a time, maybe 1 a year, like you said, 2 a year if we have the means. But this is definitely a trend we'd like to continue.
A lot of other things. I think we could squeeze one of these in every year. It says new basketball hoops now. Is that just, I know that's backboard hoops.
The whole structure from soup to nuts is going to be from the ground up, built brand new. Our plan at first, I don't know, depending on what the bidding process produces, but I think the beautiful courts they have at LMHA, that's what our vision was, to make things, you know, state of the art pretty much, you know, and give the citizens of Lackawanna something they can really be proud of.
So who came up with these specs?
I got, through initial discussions, I can't recall the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but that was like the seed that grew into discussions with the purchasing office, and he's had discussions about different specs with various corporations and entities that frankly I'm not aware of at this point.
So are we gonna, like, hire some, who's gonna oversee this, make sure that they do put 3 inches of this and do everything?
To be perfectly honest with you, at this point, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I'm I had a little heads up, I mean, we kind of
No, I was
answer.
just wondering if we had CPL doing it or somebody overseeing this.
Don't know at this point. We're
Okay.
really, just taking the first step now, so,
Okay,
yeah.
great. All right, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman Surley. Anyone else have any questions for Brian on those items? All right, returning to item number 6, it's communication from myself. It was called to my attention during one of the last meetings that actually we were required to designate a sergeant at arms. Section 5-34 entitled Enforcement of Decorum, Designation Duties of Sergeant at Arms. And the first line reads, quote, "The council shall designate a sergeant at arms for its meeting," period. The word "shall" is not discretionary. It does require that someone be appointed. And not that anyone we're ever going to have the need, hopefully, to exercise that option. But in the event, it would be nice to have someone who could communicate directly with the police department downstairs should we be in the middle of a meeting and attention needed to be called to someone who might be disruptive or whatever the case may be. And to that end, I had been approached privately by some individuals who did express a concern that there is no security here at our meetings. And I think this may be an appropriate first step. And I put it on the agenda, or asked that it be placed on the agenda for the council's consideration. So I would open up to the floor, any discussion on this item?
Council President, if I may.
Yes.
Historically, prior to being on the council, I always recall there being the Lackawanna Police Department officer present at the meetings, whether it be here or at the senior center. And whatever happened, why was that no longer a practice? Or post-COVID, why is that no longer a practice?
Based on my best information, I think the only time security was requested was in the event that there was something on the agenda that caused the community to be interested to a point where it might be disruptive, for lack of putting it in a better phrase. And without requesting security directly from the mayor, we haven't been experiencing any difficulties that would require that. I don't, if the council is of a mind to have security here, we certainly can approach Mayor Iafallo. She has discussed that on an occasion with me. But I think maybe the first important step is to appoint a sergeant at arms to address those issues initially, with the understanding that should another step be taken or needed or necessary, that person can communicate directly with the police department downstairs. Any other questions? Anyone else? Yes, Councilman Sir.
I've been on 5.5 years, and we've never had a policeman here all the time. Maybe a dozen times out of the 5.5 years I've been on. So that's all I got to say. I think it's a good idea with these trying times that we should have somebody up here. But we'll see how this works out now.
Yeah, as a suggestion, I would think we have a sergeant at arms, see how that goes.
Yeah.
And primarily it's to keep people focused on what the agenda items are, and if the public is inquiring, unless it's a a hot button issue which needs to be heard, and we understand that as a council, then the floor would be open and people would be allowed to speak on it. No one wants to curtail anyone's right to express their opinions. We've done it for years, and I know, and it's been said, many communities don't allow the public to address the council during their meetings. But we have that opportunity, and we've really, except people getting off topic and astray sometimes, we could leave that security option for another day in the event that something happens that would invite that kind of a next step. But I had discussed this matter with our Director of Public Safety, who said he'd be willing, at no additional sum of money, to act as our sergeant, being civic-minded as he is. Am I right, Director Wolf?
All about, except the money part, yeah.
Oh, we can, I don't know who your agent is these days, but we can set up a meeting.
Mr. Council President, on the question, you mentioned that he would be able to call an officer, or how would he do that?
Well, first of all, I think if you look at
You have this.
and we always have that, but that doesn't always work. I had one in Chambers too, and that didn't always work. And I'm just quoting from the section 5.34.
Right.
It says, upon instruction of the presiding officer, it shall be the duty of the sergeant at arms to expel from the council chambers any person who is out of order or who, in the opinion of the presiding officer, is violating the order and decorum of the meeting. The sergeant at arms shall have the power and authority to summon an officer of the law to enforce his or her orders in this regard, if in his or her discretion such officer of the law is needed, end quote.
Well, you got cell phones, I mean, you could get the cell phone of the guy downstairs, or, something like that.
Well, there are options, and this is the open for discussion.
Well, that's what bringing it up, that's all. I'm not trying to be nasty.
No, and you're not, and that's what we're here for the caucus for.
But as far as keeping people on topic and not going astray, that would be you just basically facilitating the meeting, right?
Well, I try, but I can only go so far, and if,
Well,
people,
you have a gavel.
yeah, I'll be here to, in the 32 years I was on the bench, I never used the gavel once. But yeah, we have a gavel, and Amir, you're closest, you may want to step up and
Hey, I don't mind.
protect us. There you go.
I'll do it, wolf cat.
All right,
So are you gonna be making a motion on this? or-
I am going to make a motion during the
Good.
meeting that we appoint Director of Public Safety John Wolf to serve in that capacity.
All right, so would the language need to be edited as far as the request being made rather than consider possibly implementing?
I just think the motion can be worded as such. Right, Mr. City Clerk?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item number 10, interestingly enough, from the Director of Public Safety, request City Council consider placing a 90-day moratorium on any new business registration involving the use of properties in our city for the purpose of renting halls for gatherings, parties, receptions, etc. Director Wolf, you want to expound on that for the public's concern, or?
Yeah, this all came to be after the shooting at 1212 Abbott Road. We had the special meeting and the license was taken back for that property. And the next day, someone came in and wanted to take over all three properties that you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, took away. So I think it's kind of basically just kind of a shuffling of the ownership. So I thought maybe a 90-day moratorium, talking with the council president, maybe it was a better idea. You guys could come up with maybe some parameters, a better way to give out the licenses for this specific type.
Yeah, we also talked about the idea of maybe requiring a bond in some monetary amount in case there's these kinds of events that cause these kinds of public disruption and danger, that if people know they're exposed to losing their bond as a result, they may take care as to who their parties are involved and who their guests are. Anyone else have any points to make on item number 10?
I have a few questions. So again, the language is to consider placing 90 days. Is this something that we're gonna vote to enact today, or is it just conversation?
No, the conversation we can have now, but if the council sees fit, a motion can be made, seconded, and if it passes, then we will have an appropriate resolution prepared, I believe, by the city attorney and have that invoked.
Okay, so this is precipitated from the event that occurred at 1212 Abbott Road, to my understanding, is that correct?
Well, it's the event plus the attempt afterwards to have an acquaintance of the original individual come forward and apply for the same opportunity to have these kinds of gatherings at the same 3 locations.
Right, so that would set the tone for anyone else interested in doing business as such.
Yeah, it would be a 90-day moratorium pending a further discussion and research by our city attorney relative to how to tighten down this particular.
Okay,
Right, so you're gonna refer it to the city attorney, and I think, what I would do is I would check with some other municipalities, see what type of laws and rules they have in effect, see if there's other things that we can invoke that wouldn't be cost prohibitive, but would offer some protection, so that, shootings or, riots don't occur or whatever.
So then you're suggesting we receive and file, refer to your office for.
I would take action on it, and then refer it to the city attorney. And I'm not saying it's gonna take me 90 days to get back to you, but maybe after 30 days, you'll decide to implement some type of measures, and then you can remove the moratorium,
Or we could always extend the moratorium.
or extend, whatever.
so my concern is that this would impede on future businesses, whereas this is an isolated situation.
You're right, but it's only for 90 days. until
Right,
the
well,
moratorium.
90 days is a long time for someone's livelihood. That's a long time. And why can't we just reject certain licenses?
How are we gonna know who that person is that's requesting a license?
Well, with this particular situation, why can't we just reject this particular,
Because
what ramifications are there?
they may be able to change the location. Right now, it was pretty obvious what we were experiencing when a third party or second party, but I look at it, comes forward and asks to open 3 new businesses via new applications for the 3 existing locations where the problems occurred.
Correct, so,
So that was an obvious one. A new one may not be so obvious. Maybe a third party we've never experienced before, we don't know of any relationship with the existing party that rented the other 3 locations, but they want to rent a new location in such an address. Oh, we won't know until actually if that person's in business to see what's going on there.
is 90 days even enough time to actually be privy to what's the reality behind the scenes?
It could be an hour that then you know what's gonna happen, or it could be, a year, we don't know. The point of the matter is, I think we need to tighten down as best we can as a council and as a city, these kinds of events that have led up to these kinds of episodes in the past, so as to avoid them as best as we can in the future. There's no guarantees here, obviously, and anything can happen at any time.
Right, that's why I understand with this particular situation, I completely do, but I don't want it to infringe on other individuals who are completely innocent of any wrongdoing and simply want to open a banquet hall or a gathering
Yeah,
space.
and then you have your vote to either vote for the measure or to not vote for the measure. But I know that our city attorney, he and I have had discussions on this issue a couple times, and it may not take 90 days to agree upon or to have some acceptable language that might help tighten down the statute so as to make these things less likely in the future, but to not do anything is an open invitation to somebody coming forward and taking a legitimate application for those same residences or those same locations, and we can't stop it. There's nothing that's occurred. It's an entirely different individual. So don't we, by rule of law, have to entertain their application without any, they're not gonna put it on, they're gonna run it to obviously.
How about we give some of the power back to the people that live around that area? And what say do they have as far as allowing certain businesses to open up in their backyard?
Do you really wanna do that?
If I was a resident in the area, I would want that opportunity.
Well, first of all, it's a commercial area, and those are governed by certain laws, and whether the residents are happy about it or not, obviously, there's a planning board procedure, there may be a zoning board procedure. The applications are reviewed and dissected by our city clerk, and then only a temporary intermediary license can be granted. But there's a procedure that the residents are invited to, especially with the planning board, to have comments at that particular point in time, and also to the city council meetings when we're entertaining those particular applications for final approval. Mr. City Clerk?
If I may, I spoke to the city attorney. We're gonna sit down as soon as we can to go over some of the provisional business license applications we talked about at the last meeting. But I had a suggestion here. In lieu of a 90-day moratorium, why don't we just make these type businesses exempt from the provisional license and make them start with the process right away, where they've got to go through all the hoops, going through the fire marshal, the code enforcement, planning, zoning, director of public safety, director of development. That was a process in place before. If we put that in place, that process in and of itself takes time. You could take this type of business and say they're not eligible for a provisional license.
Well, don't we have to pass something that says we are not accepting applications even on an interim basis for these kinds of
I think in the business section, 88, where it allows for the provisional license to be issued, I think in the language, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, I think in the license provisions, the wording, it could clearly state the following businesses shall not be granted provisional licenses. You could put a list of whoever you think maybe you don't want to give the clerk's office the discretion to just.
But that statute still has to be amended.
It does. It would have to go through the
So
body.
we still need councilmanic action, right?
Well, you could
Even if it's not 90
table this.
days.
You could table this, or you could vote to accept this and refer it to the city attorney pending his opinion. I'm just giving one idea.
But I think the more immediacy is what our focus is.
I follow you.
We've got a month till the next
And,
meeting, or a couple
yeah,
weeks.
that's true. There is 1 month, and
Yeah.
yeah, if you wanted to put that in place
Now,
with the understanding that we're going to work on that section and try to clean it up a little bit.
Director Wolf, you had something?
The only problem with not giving it a provisional is there's still nothing, there's no punishment if this happens after they get their license. So if you, like you had mentioned, getting a bond or something along those lines, provisional or not, you don't give them a provisional, we're not gonna know anything's gonna be happening bad until they get their license. And that goes for every business in the city, I understand that. But for these type of businesses, if the council and the city attorney come up with a monetary on top of that, then once they get their license and something happens, at least you could revoke that. You could take that money as punishment. So provisional or permanent, it wouldn't matter in this case. That 1212 Abbott Road was not a provisional license, but it occurred.
Right.
So it's the type of business that's the problem. It's basically just a hall for people to get together, and these things, the people that are getting together are not even from our city, majority of the time. They're coming from other parts.
And plus there was a pattern here.
Yes, oh yeah, it was happening right across the street from City Hall.
Exactly. In addition to that, there may be something that Rick might suggest regarding holding the landlords responsible.
Right.
That's another step.
So that's why I think the 90-day moratorium is more important than just tabling it. Just my opinion, of course, that's up to you folks.
I
But
would appreciate that, thank you. But there's something to consider. When we come to that portion of the meeting, then if somebody would like to make an amended motion, we can entertain that. If not, then we can consider what Director Wolf has requested. Anyone else on that topic? Our next items are 11, 12, and 13, and our city controller is present, Linda. And these three items are related and are dealing with the fire department. And there's a transfer of $160,000 in grant monies for a training, for equipment. In item number 11, number 12, transfer of $235,000 to create a training facility. And item number 13, $15,000, I believe, to make an alteration to accommodate the new fire truck at one of the fire stations. Linda, you have the floor. If anything, you could expound on that for us, please.
Sure. The first grant, the one that involves the fire protective equipment, that was a DASNY grant secured by the efforts of Mayor Iafallo with Assemblyman Burke, and that was for $160,000. And we're required to establish a separate code to keep track of the spending for that grant. And this sets aside that money. And once we spend the money and the project is complete, then we submit everything for reimbursement and we get reimbursed for that, and the funds are returned to our appropriated fund balance. And the second grant also involves a DASNY grant, similar in nature, and Mayor Iafallo secured that with the efforts of Senator Kennedy. And that one relates to the fire training facility for $235,000. And again, we need to track all the expenses, keep them separate. And when that project is complete, we request reimbursement. And the third item relates to a new fire truck that is expected to be delivered in the 22-23 budget year. And in order to accommodate the size of the fire truck, the firehouse needs to be altered. And certain materials required, I believe it is a steel beam that's involved, the costs are expected to increase measurably over the next month and a half before our new budget starts on August 1st. And the vendor who is going to be performing the work asked if we could provide him with a $15,000 advance to secure the materials that are necessary in an effort to keep the costs at the quoted level and not have to expend additional funds on behalf of the city for that project.
Very good. Thank you so much, Linda. Any of the council members have any questions on either of those three items?
So the 15,000 is just to lock in the price. And
Yes, to
Fine.
purchase the
the
material
other
ahead.
line was 180,000, that's already next year's budget.
Correct.
Right, okay, so in order to not face major increases, we want to get that 15,000 to the vendor.
In this year's budget.
All
And
right.
this just requests that the money be set aside for that purpose.
Right, and one more thing, you're the one that keeps track of all these grants and everything, all right?
I'm doing my best.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? 11, 12, or 13? Moving on to item number 14 from our city attorney, request city council approve attached ordinance regarding parking on Josie Street. Apparently the residents there have experienced some difficulties. And the remedies that's being suggested is changing the parking times. Mr. Judah, anything you want to add on that one?
Apparently, it's mostly during the school sessions, kids are parking there, playing loud music, littering. So, I mean, they should be parking in the school parking lot, so.
Okay.
It doesn't affect weekends, so hopefully it won't affect the homeowners during the week after, I think, 3:30 or 4 o'clock. You can park on the street. So Tony, I don't know if you have like standard signs or you have to order special signs. Did you see the hours?
Oh, we have to make different signs because they're different hours, but my question is that for the full length of Josie from Martin Road to,
No, it says between Martin and Shannon.
okay.
So that the section that runs between Shannon and Della will remain as is for now.
Anyone else?
No, I'd just like to thank the city attorney for taking the initiative to get this done. I was getting a lot of complaints there, people were parking, like throwing Tim Hortons cup, the guy in the corner, had to go out and clean his yard all the time. And I called the superintendent, I go, don't they have enough room in the parking lot? And, he was like, why do they gotta park over there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. All right, moving on to item number 15, communications from citizens. Ian Schroeder submits a communication regarding concerns from an adjacent property on Cook Street. We will have that addressed during the main part of the meeting. Mr. City Clerk, is there a way you could summarize that for us?
Item number 15. Just roll right over to here. Copy this communication. All right, I received an email, actually the council did, I was CC'd. Do you want me to read the email or just paraphrase it, or?
Why don't you, I don't know remember how long it is.
It's a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, why don't you read it?
All right. Apparently, I received this on Friday, June 10th. It says, hello, at this time I have not received any follow-up pertaining to my concern outside of our initial conversation. I have made an additional 4 telephone calls, yada, yada, yada. The issue here is he's continuing to fill holes caused by rodents burrowing under his fence and has started to incur expenses out of his own pocket for trying to prevent this rodent infestation, apparently. And he's been directed to the county, apparently, and he's basically looking for some assistance from the city, whether it's animal control or what have you, someone that will respond or give him some guidance as to what he's going to do with this issue that's starting to cost him money.
Thank you, Mr. City Clerk. Director Jedick, are you familiar with this problem?
From this council meeting, I am, yes.
Okay, do you have anything that you might add additionally?
I don't, and I've talked to Scott and Steve about this. Conversations are ongoing as well, but I hope I can get Ian just a response, a collective response as well this week.
Do we know who owns the property adjacent to him?
I don't off the top of my head right now.
Is it unkept property? Is it vegetation? Is it garbage? Is it?
Yeah, I should have read the first one because I read the second one. And the first one, he was referring to some construction materials, building materials, garbage that has been left because of a contractor doing work at his neighbor's house. And apparently the rodents are making a home in the piles of debris and encroaching on his property.
So I've spoken with him. He's communicated with myself as well as with Scott and Steve through email. I spoke with him on the phone, and he's very frustrated at the lack of progress that his neighbor is making as far as cleaning up the property next to him, and it's starting to spill over into his as far as rodents go. I believe that address is 2 Cook, if I'm not mistaken. 22 Cook. And this is an ongoing issue that we've been CC'd and kind of on a thread of emails to see. And the last I spoke with Scott and Steve was that they were sending letters to this person who owns a property to have him clean up, but I don't know if there's been anything enforceable by the city on the property owner as of yet.
Possibly a citation might be in order.
If it hasn't already happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm led to believe that it has, but I can't be for certain as of right now.
Okay.
Lauren, would you check that out and make sure
Yes.
somebody inspects and if appropriate issue citations?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else on that topic? Item number 16, our former council member John Ingram submitted a request on 4 different items. John, we can take you during the regular part of the meeting. Is that all right with you? Very good. Item number 17, from Erica Schoen, request City Council consider a law similar to that of New York CLSR PAPL Section 711, number 6. I read the communication, quite frankly, I don't know what it means.
I'm here, sorry.
Yes.
So I bought a house in Lackawanna and 3 of my tenants have taken down their fire alarms, their smoke detectors. And there is a law that was created by the Senate that is pertainable to cities in New York State with populations over 100,000 people for a special eviction, a type of special eviction that allows you to claim that the tenant has only a certain amount of days to cure smoke detectors and fire alarms that they take down and remove for whatever reason without permission. This is different from how it's normally done in that if you have a curable infraction, you have to commit the offense twice. You have to commit the offense once for 30 days. If you correct it and then re-offend, then you get another 30 days. Before you really can evict somebody, the court usually gives them another 30 days to correct an infraction. This only pertains to tenants that have a year or 2 year long lease. It doesn't pertain to month-to-month tenants because you can just terminate their lease. The reason I think it is important that Lackawanna create a law, some sort of law that allows landlords to get out tenants with longer leases that remove their fire alarms is because, one, since I've owned a house, I know of 2 big fires that happened because of non-working fire alarms in residential properties with tenants. And 2 is that I think Lackawanna has, at least my house specifically, has an issue with tenants that commit repeated infractions of their leases, and I'm limited in the things I'm allowed to do to get them out. And this would give me another option. It really wouldn't apply to my current tenants. I'm going to fix the issue before then. But in the future, it would apply to other landlords and myself in the future if they do something like that. And I think it's a safety issue.
Well, and well put, and that's a common problem all over. And having read your communication to the city council, and I believe you alluded to it in your just speaking right now, the New York State law pertains to communities of 100,000 people and over.
Right.
So that would, I would think, preclude us from being able to initiate a legislation along those same lines.
See, it does and it doesn't. You couldn't say create a special eviction proceeding in court because you're not allowed to create laws, I think, like that. But it does allow you to change, say, your nuisance laws. You have certain nuisance laws that pertain to tenants and certain types of infractions.
Why wouldn't you just put it in your lease?
You do. But my point is even if the tenant commits an infraction against their lease, they have 30 days to cure it. You go to court, the court gives them another 30
I don't mean to
days.
interrupt, but where does the 30 days come from?
That's from 2019. There was a change in the laws that changed it from 10 days to 30 days to cure an infraction.
Even if it's a health and safety
Yeah.
issue?
Yeah. Unless it is a issue that is either written about in the locality that says it's a nuisance infraction, or the other reason is it's considered incurable. And incurable infractions are basically only talked about in case law. They're not really talked about in actual law. So you have to read all these different case laws if you're going to try and get a tenant out without a lawyer, and the lawyers don't even want to get out tenants for infractions against their lease. They want to get them out for non-payment or just terminating the lease, which means you have to live out a year-long lease with a bad tenant. I called a bunch of lawyers about it. So, not to be weird, I just like better ways to get out bad tenants so that I can clean up this house, and if I buy other ones, I can clean up those houses quicker than the way I'm doing it now.
Well, what if you had the smoke alarm hardwired into the electrical system?
I can still take them down. You just untwist them.
Well, I would think that would be more of a serious violation because it's an electrical item that you have someone who's not licensed to practice, a licensed electrician to deal with that, I would think that'd be more serious of.
I personally would be satisfied with that, since I've been putting in hardwired fire alarms. I've done it in 2 of my 5 units, and the other one of them will be done this summer. So if you wanna do a law like that, I would say go ahead, but I think any kind of law that allows landlords to get out bad tenants who do things that I think endanger other people and the house and themselves, I really think that would be a good idea. However that works, but, you know, it's something you have to discuss, talk to the city attorney and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that would work, and I don't know if the city should be responsible for doing what the landlord didn't do.
Well, see, that's where I differ from you. In the 1950s, landlord-tenant case law came into effect. Before that, things that the tenants did that were dangerous to the health and safety of other residents were considered criminal infractions. I mean, you can look up the history on that. You know, most of the cities, or most of the states in the Northeast started to create civil laws for landlord-tenant actions. If a tenant removes the fire alarms, that used to be criminal mischief. You know, if a tenant lies and says that they're not going to pay their rent, or says that they will pay their rent, and you give them an extension and they show you proof that they're going to, that used to be, I think it was theft by deception. There used to be a bunch of laws that you could use against tenants, and now we don't use them at all, even though they're still applicable. So I think it is a city issue, or it could be if the city would like to, and I think it'd be an easy way to clean up the city when you have some bad tenants that cause issues.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Absolutely.
again, I think you're putting onto the city responsibility that's the landlords, and is the manipulation, tampering with fire alarms not a misdemeanor any longer? Isn't it criminal mischief? I thought it always was.
I think it is too, but
Well, that's still an option for the landlord, right?
I don't know any landlords, and I can't find any
Well, we're
case
talking
law
about you in
it.
particular, though.
Right,
We don't have to worry about other landlords. You're the one who brought this.
absolutely.
So if you have that option to file a criminal charge for misdemeanor tampering or criminal mischief, that is an option, and that's not the city's responsibility.
I
It's
think,
yours.
I think what she's saying is if we put in our code that it's considered a nuisance to do that, then that gives her the teeth she needs to file an immediate summary eviction proceeding.
Absolutely.
Isn't that what you're saying?
Thank you. You're a much better speaker than I am.
Because we're not gonna, first of all, we're not gonna be able to get into these houses to inspect them to see what's there and what's not there. And when you file your eviction proceeding, you know, you're gonna have to plead that the unit is located inside their unit and that it was operational when they came in and they purposely removed it, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
Well, don't they all have to,
So,
doesn't the tenant
so-
just have to deny it? And that's a defense?
That's why I don't do landlord eviction anymore. The laws are,
blame
it's way too liberal now, and it's,
I feel your pain.
Well, it's not about.
I'll look at it and I mean, I don't have time to do it immediately, but I'll look at it and if there's something that we can pass that will make it easier for landlords, I'm all favor for that.
I mean,
As long as it doesn't put the burden on the city,
absolutely.
because we're, you know, unfortunately, we've been involved in fire lawsuits, which really aren't our
Well,
responsibility.
if it becomes a nuisance and the city's legislation says we're taking that on, and making that a requirement and a nuisance, doesn't the city become a party in the event there's a fire and
Well,
there's damage?
that's what I gotta look
or
at.
death? Yeah, I think so.
See, I only think it pertains if somebody complains to the city about it, you know, and the city doesn't respond in a certain number of days. I know with one tenant who was really bad, well, I have one tenant that was very, very bad, and I called Scott, and he came, and they posted a thing stating that I waived my habitability of the property to get this bad tenant out. And that's one way to get out a bad tenant, but it really shouldn't resort to
I think
that.
you should write a letter to Tim Kennedy and to some of your local politicians that have passed all these laws and said, look, it should be a misdemeanor to tamper with any type of fire safety mechanism that's, you know, whether it's a fire extinguisher or you know, I know in college, if you took a fire extinguisher in the hall and you played around with it, they throw you out of school, or you got a lot of work hours, you know, you got discipline. And I don't know if it's the same thing now, but I would bet in these big apartment complexes, if people do that, they get arrested. So why they don't in houses, I don't know, but I'll definitely look at it.
Thank you.
Before we go on to the next item, our Director of Recreation asked to be excused early. He has another commitment, and we've already heard from him on his issues and his items before the council. So unless someone else has an objection, Brian, thank you for being here. Thanks for your input, and you're all set.
Appreciate it, thank you.
We had item number 18 from Kimberly Smith, request city council approve closing Church Street between Gates and Watson between noon and 5 o'clock on Saturday, July 2nd, 2022 for the first ward kickoff of Summerfest. Anyone have any direction or any comments on item number 18? And during the regular part of the meeting, once we get into that, we will have a conference with our city attorney regarding old business items 1 and 2. With that, it's approximately 16 minutes after 7. I'll call to order our formal meeting for the regular city council meeting, June 21st, 2022. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. City Clerk, would you take the roll?
Absolutely. Council, Muflahi. Anderson. Ready. Here. Sirlik. Here. Morano. Here. Department heads law. Here. Development.
Here.
Public works.
Here.
Public safety.
Here.
Controller.
Here.
Recreation was excused. It is noted he attended the caucus. Public information.
Here.
Hearings from citizens. We have the sheet, please.
Empty.
Here you go, sir.
We have no comments from our citizens. Move on to the approval of minutes.
Yes, we have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 6, 2022, and the special meeting of June 9, 2022.
We're going to move to adopt the minutes of both the aforementioned meetings as written.
Motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to adopt the minutes of both the aforementioned meetings as written. Muflahi.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Sirlik.
Yes.
Morano.
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Departmental reports 1 through 5.
We're going to move to receive and file departmental reports 1 through 5.
Motion by Morano, second by Moretti, to receive and file departmental reports 1 through 5. Muflahi.
Yes.
Anderson. Yes. Ready.
Yes.
Sirlik.
Yes.
Morano.
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Number 6, communications from the council. Council President Morano requests the city council consider and possibly implement the invocation of section 5-34 of the city charter, enforcement of decorum, designation, duties of sergeant at arms.
Morano moves to act on a request and appoint Director of Public Safety John Wolf as our Sergeant at Arms.
That's at no additional fee, correct?
That's a no additional fee.
We have a motion by Morano, second by Anderson, to move on the request and appoint the Director of Public Safety to the position of Sergeant at Arms. Muflahi.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Moretti.
Yes.
Sirlik.
Yes.
Morano.
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Communications from Division Department Heads, number 7. Director of Recreation requests the City Council direct the City Clerk to advertise for bids for the refurbishment of 3 basketball courts located at Liddell, Victory, and Bethlehem Park playgrounds.
Morano moves to approve request, direct City Clerk to advise, or to advertise for bids.
Second.
A motion by Morano, second by Sirlik, to approve the request, direct City Clerk to advertise for bids. Muflahi.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Moretti.
Yes.
Sirlik.
Yes.
Morano.
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Number 8, Director of Recreation requests the City Council approve the use of Veterans Stadium by the Lackawanna Fire Department Benevolent Association to host their 100th annual Firefighters Ball on Saturday, August 6, 2022, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Details are attached, including proof of insurance.
Morano moves to approve request.
Moretti second.
Motion by Morano, second by Moretti to approve request. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Item number 9, the Director of Recreation has pulled that from the agenda. The applicant is no longer interested in having that event. So moving on to number 10. Director of Public Safety requests the City Council consider placing a 90-day moratorium on any new business registration involving the use of properties in our city for the purpose of renting halls for gatherings, parties, receptions, etc.
Morano moves that we receive and file communication from a public safety director and act on the request to initiate a resolution establishing a 90-day moratorium on any new business registration involving the use of properties in our city for the purpose of renting halls for gatherings, parties, receptions, etc.
I'm sorry, can we simplify that? Are we moving to approve it, or are we moving to further discuss it, receive and file?
I don't think,
Receive and file an act by directing first of all, by passing the 90-day moratorium.
So I don't think I need to prepare a written resolution. I think you can do that as a
Okay,
motion from the
fine.
floor.
Right.
So I think that's the substance of his motion.
Gotcha. Who's the second?
Sorry.
That's okay.
So let me make sure I've got this. I've got a motion by Morano, second by Anderson to approve the request for the 90-day moratorium.
And refer to the law department.
Yep, I was gonna put refer to the city attorney for further guidance. Does that work?
Yes.
Muflahi?
No.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 4-1. Item number 11, City Controller requests the City Council approve the attached ordinance transferring $160,000 in grant awards for the Fire Department PPE, personal protective equipment, from the general fund to the capital fund.
Morano moves to receive and file act on ordinance.
Moretti second. Motion by Morano, second by Moretti to receive and file act on ordinance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. The ordinance amending the 2021-2022 budget ordinance adopted May 18, 2021 by increasing appropriations for the capital project entitled Fire Protective Equipment 2022, which is a DASNY grant, by $160,000.
Morano moves to adopt ordinance as written.
Motion by Morano, second by Anderson to adopt ordinance as written. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirlik?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Number 12, City Controller requests the City Council approve the attached ordinance transferring $235,000 in grant awards for fire training facility from the general fund to the capital fund.
Morano moves to receive and file act on ordinance.
Moretti, sir. Motion by Morano, second by Moretti to receive and file act on ordinance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. The ordinance amending the 2021-2022 budget ordinance adopted May 18, 2021 by increasing appropriations for the capital project entitled Fire Training Facility 2022, also a DASNY grant, by $235,000.
Morano moves to adopt ordinance as written.
Second.
Motion by Morano, second by Sirdike to adopt ordinance as written. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Item number 13, City Controller requests the City Council approve the attached ordinance amending the 2021-2022 budget ordinance adopted May 18, 2021 by adding budget code for fire station alterations and adding $15,000 to the budget code for fire station alterations.
Morano moves to receive and file act on ordinance.
Moretti, second. Motion by Morano, second by Moretti to receive and file act on ordinance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. The ordinance amending the 2021-22 budget ordinance adopted May 18, 2021 by adding the budget code for fire station alterations, adding $15,000 to the budget code for fire station alterations, and reducing budget code for buildings, repairs, and replacements by $15,000.
Morano moves to adopt ordinance as written.
Moretti second.
Motion by Morano, second by Moretti to adopt ordinance as written. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Item number 14, city attorney requests the city council approve the attached ordinance regarding parking on Josie Street.
Motion to receive and file.
Act on ordinance?
Yeah, Connie, what was that?
Second.
Motion by Sirdike, second by Morano, to receive and file act on ordinance. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. The ordinance is amending Chapter 215, Traffic and Vehicles of the City of Lackawanna Municipal Code, specifically Chapter 215.43, 102 Josie Drive. On the east and west side, there will be no parking at any time on the east or west side of Josie Drive between Martin Road and Shannon Drive, Monday through Friday, between 7 a.m. and 3:30 p.m.
Motion to adopt order as read.
Second.
Motion by Sirdike, second by Morano, to adopt ordinance as written. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Communications from citizens, number 15. Dean Schroeder, resident, submits a communication regarding concerns from an adjacent property on Cook Street.
Morano moves to receive and file, refer to the Director of Development and Code Enforcement.
Maflahe seconds.
So the motion by Morano, second by Muflahi, to receive and file, refer to the Director of Development and Code Enforcement for action. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Item number 16, John Ingram, resident, former council member of the First Ward, submits a question to the city council. I'll give the floor to Mr. Ingram.
John?
Good evening, thank you for allowing me to speak. My first question, the traffic signal light on Ridge Road is still one. We were told we were gonna have one. Now, I was there at the last council meeting when the gentleman was talking about the traffic light, but I can tell you, the citizens want that light because it's very important for the flow of traffic that is now coming through Lackawanna on a regular basis. It's very important to have that light for the safety of us that live in the First Ward and around the area. And I understand what I'm studying this thing, but if you see the traffic when it comes through later on, how it blocks the safety for our kids crossing the street, whatever, we need that light.
I think you do have support for that light. In fact, I think the money has been granted and available for that. Any members of the council or department heads care to add anything on that request?
Yes, if I may.
Yes.
We actually voted on this, I believe in February, and it was initially determined to be a hawk light beacon, but then with further conversation with the mayor and the legislator, Gilmore, it was then told that the $250,000 can go to a full-fledged state-of-the-art lights with crosswalk right at the corner of Lackawanna and Ridge Road. So that's only a matter of time until I believe the lights are on back order 6 months, if I'm not mistaken.
So
6 to 9.
actually, the design work on the intersection is just being completed. Nothing has been ordered, nothing has, we haven't given a commitment to go on it yet. We need to meet with the mayor, CPL, and council president, Morano, to discuss all that was entailed in this project.
But it has been approved.
It hasn't been approved by the
council.
body, but scope of work is still
Absolutely.
going on, and you're looking at a long time yet.
Well, see, that's my problem. It shouldn't be such a long time.
Well, John,
Let me finish, I listen to things, because it was approved or whatever, and the way it was presented, and was talked about to the citizens, whatever, we knew it had to be some time. But now, and I understand when you say maybe it's longer, whatever, but that's what we're talking about, the time. And then the time it seems like when it comes something, specifically in Ward 1, it takes a little extra time. You know what I'm saying? And residents we're kind of tired of that. And I can understand that you have to do certain things, but if we have an accident, somebody get killed there, what you gonna say? Well, we got the time. You know, this is the lights. All those lights that were taken down. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't this administration didn't do it, but it made no sense. You know, it made no sense because they wouldn't think about the future of Lackawanna. So right now, I understand that it's gonna take some time. The residents need to know that, and they need to be told to the residents. It's not told to the residents. You know, so I'm just saying, be better communication.
Let me ask this, Tony, is there a meeting scheduled for this item? And in addition to that question, Tony, if we went back to the hawk light, is that less of an undertaking?
No.
Still, it's
Still the same. And you wanna, if you wanna put something there, you're best to put a regular, traffic signal there with pedestrian crossing, not just a crosswalk, because you can't put that at just a crosswalk at an intersection. Okay, if you put it at the intersection, you need a full light. Everybody wants it at that intersection. Crosswalks are in between intersections. And you know, it's not like the city's holding up these projects. You gotta understand what it entails going through, grant money and trying to, facilitate the grant, the application, and it's not an easy process.
I respect
And nobody's holding up a project because we don't wanna do the work.
I respect that, and I understand it. So now I understand what you have to go through. But at the same time, I'm listening with the citizens, I've seen, especially in the ward that I live in. My next question
Well,
is,
before you go on to your next question, and I don't mean to interrupt you, John, we're gonna count on you to keep this,
yeah.
issue front and center for us, right?
yes, that's not a problem. I can do it. The update on the installation of speed bumps on gates. Now, I talked to municipal housing, they willing to put the speed bumps there. And I know some people say you don't need speed, but if you on gates, where our children, little children, we have a lot of children running there, we had a young lady die. I'm not saying that the speed bumps were, but maybe her driver couldn't have speeded if we had them bumps there. You know, we have little kids. People are concerned about the way that people are driving up from gates late at night, in the morning. When the school buses stop, they're going around the school bus, whatever, they speed. The folks want some speed bumps. We have somebody that's willing to put bumps in, you know, just like they got in Baker Home, and then we can take them out. Is that a bigger issue? I don't understand why we can't put those bumps there. Just if it can help curtail a little bit of traffic and save one person's life. I think it's well worth it.
Is a suggestion on that item, John. I read your communication that put this item on the agenda. And I believe you were requesting on behalf of Gates that we would consider authorizing the housing project, Mark Kuig, to allow to put the speed bumps. I think you need a little bit more of a board action to request the city take action on that, and furthermore that they're willing to place the speed bumps. But something that came up the last meeting, John, that I don't think any of us were really aware of, and that was when Jason mentioned that the speed bumps solve one problem, but they create other problems, possibly legally for the city. And that you have to give notice that the speed bumps are there. You may have to change the rate of speed, because somebody who's legitimately traveling at 30 miles an hour, even though it may be too much for that, too fast for that immediate area, especially adjacent to Odell Playground, if those speed bumps in there and there's not enough notice and damage is done, or the person loses control, and it's determined that the speed bump was the cause of that accident, or the person leaving control, that leaves a lot of liability exposure to the city.
And I understand that, and that's why I said I sit on the Lackawanna Municipal Housing Board, and we're going to be bringing it up at the next meeting. But, and also, those are questions we can find out and maybe give some time so we can have them. So we're just concerned about, like I said, we just lost a life. We just don't want to lose another one.
And we're familiar with that issue, and just so you remember that when Jason spoke, they did speed bumps in the city of Buffalo, and they did an 18-month study prior to installing those. So there was a lot of thought and planning that had to go into it.
And I think this is a good start, if I may say a few words. I am all on board for the implementation of speed bumps in the city of Lackawanna, particularly my district. I've heard and I've spoken with many individuals that have the same concerns that Mr. Ingram has today. And to say that we may have some liability issues in the future, lawsuits and whatnot, that's nowhere compared to the life of a child or an elderly or anybody for that matter. Wheel bearings are replaceable, lives aren't. So,
what about enforcing speed limits?
And enforcing speed limits, I'm happy that you mentioned that, because if you were to scope out the first ward, there's no sign for speed limits, not one.
Well, there's none in the city. They're at the entrance to the cities, if I recall correctly.
But there are none within the streets. There's not a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit at any of the schools. There's 3 schools in the first ward. none, not on Ridge for the two schools and not next door to the Islamic Center on the corner of Washington and Wilkes-Barre. So there's no 15-mile-per-hour speed limit there. It's never been that way. And there's a lot of factors that need to go into this. Elevated patrol, I've spoken with public safety about increasing the patrol. People want more presence of police on the streets. We need that presence there. It's a heightened alert for people to be conscious of possibly getting a ticket. People are driving with no regard, whether it's a four-wheeler, a dirt bike, or a fast car. It doesn't even need to be a sports car for it to go well over the 60 mile per hour. I'm talking about minivans and SUVs that are going at rapid speed. So I completely am on board with this, and if the discussion where we could create some kind of a committee or speak with Lackawanna Municipal Health, whatever it may be, I am 1000% on board to get all of these pieces of the puzzle together, because it's not one fix. I get it. There's many layers to this onion, and I'm willing to sit and have conversation, as well as with Mr. Ingram if he's willing to speak with me, because I know he refuses to speak with me on many issues. So this may be an olive branch where we can start something new.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, I'm here. I've always been
We'll see.
here, so it's on.
We'll
It's
see.
the ball is in your court.
My third question. I asked the city of Lackawanna to follow the lead of Buffalo regarding stores. If they're doing anything, like if they're getting free food is being given out and they taking it back to their stores selling. Lackawanna, I'm not saying any of the stores in Lackawanna doing anything like that, but if they are, if we know of some stores that are doing that or doing anything that's hurting the citizen, Buffalo, that's a good lead what Buffalo is doing. First of all, they fine them, they close them, they have to reapply for it. We're not saying that, I don't think we have stores that do a great job for our citizens. But we have some stores, and if we're gonna be honest, I know for a fact that residents had to go in there and almost tear the store up because how they would treat their children and treating them with outdated food, outdated things, and nobody was checking. Because I know for a fact, I went down there and asked, how could they do this? But that's not all stores. But if any store that's in our area that's doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing, that's not racist to say they need to be penalized. They need to be fired, or necessarily they need to be closed. And the reason I say that, because when I said that, and I put on there specifically what the city could be doing, I was labeled almost like I was a racist. And it was only until after feedback from other residents that say he didn't say that. All he said was, if any store is not doing what they're supposed to do, they should be penalized. I am sick and tired when people are doing their job, doing what they're supposed to do, whether they're citizens, whether they're councilmen, councilwomen, or whatever, they're being called out their name, they're being saying, well, you're racist. You're not racist if you care for your thing. We can agree to disagree on everything. I've been at this council 15 years. I've never said it was, you did treat me bad because I'm black, blue, green. I talked about the issue, and I will continue to do that. But some people take it to the next level, and that's not good for none of us. Buffalo has a good solution. I'm not saying we got to do everything, but some of it we need to look at and say, you know what, that's help for our citizens.
And just as a quick response, my response to the last time we take it under advisement, and I know you didn't like that response, but it was a response, and I did speak to our city attorney on that topic to see whether that should be contemplated or not, or what the next step should be. So it hasn't been forgotten, and if there is determined to be a need because there are such violations, well, not only maybe their application to operate as a store might be withdrawn, subject to a hearing, but perhaps considering further action like they've taken in Buffalo might be appropriate. I just, in trying to find out if we've had any of those issues, I haven't heard of that.
There aren't any. Council President, if I may, I'm very aware of the situation in the city of Buffalo, and I'm very proud to announce that there has not been any fines. Nobody's license was revoked. No penalties and no suspensions. From May 14th of the tragedy that happened till today, there has been none. I've been very active on the scenes with some of the business owners, actually with the Arab American Business Association, who run a 350 store coalition consisting of telecommunications, fashion and clothing, delis and pizzerias, restaurants. This is not just your average little mom and pop partner stores. These are thriving businesses. And they've all pulled together and actually made very generous donations to the Cold Spring community. So to say this and for me to just sit silently, that's not gonna happen. There aren't any issues here in the city of Lackawanna. To be honest with you, this is a very moot situation to even discuss today because it's not happening. So I don't know what action you want to happen, but if there aren't any stores, can you pinpoint
Let me
a store
say
that
this.
has had that situation?
Let me say this. We did have some. They're not here right now. They closed. Here, in Lackawanna. Well, we had.
After
Let
May
me finish.
14?
Okay, one at a time.
Let me finish. I'm not saying that any stores are doing it now. I'm just saying precaution for what we're doing. That is not saying that whether it's an Arabic store, African American store, Hispanic store. It is nothing wrong in seeing something. You know what? That's something we could put on our books to protect our city. That's not being attacking somebody. That's just working to make our stores safer for our city, for our citizens. Because we have had some issues. You may not have been aware of that, but there's been some issues.
You're referring to donated goods that came
And
about
donate- but-
after the tragedy on Jefferson Avenue.
but I'm-
So we're
I'm-
sticking with that topic.
I'm sticking with everything that happened in our community.
Hey, John, I just think there's laws on our books now in our business registration. We have a hearing procedure. If there's issues with a particular store, we've sent code enforcement down in the past. And I think there's laws on the books that already protect the city from anything like that. You know, as far as, you know, somebody selling an expired food or something, I mean, if you're a businessman and you've got thousands of items on your shelves, I'm sure, you know, sometimes things slip through the crack. It's happened to myself when I bought things at major grocery stores. But if it's a problem and it's brought to our attention, certainly we'll go down and check it out. And I think we have, again, if you were to pull someone's license, that's a drastic remedy. So I think we already have laws on the books. We have trouble enforcing the laws that we already have on our books. So why would we adopt more laws? That's all I'm saying.
Well, all I'm saying is, if we see something that, with everything that's happened, there's nothing to permit it. And I wasn't talking about an Arabic community or Arabic store. I'm talking about anybody. But, and I see when we talk about that, it seems to be taken out of context. But we've been talking about it. I said myself, and I'm going on to my next. The council about public speaking. Mr. Cernak is the only person been serving on the council. All right? You about the longest serving person on this council, I would say right now. I've been here 15 years. I've been coming to council meetings for 15 years. My first introduction to a council meeting was shut the hell up. You know?
That was told to you?
That was told to all of us that were sitting here. We had the next council meeting, we were on channel 7, 4, and 2. And everybody got to speak. I'm not saying this administration would do anything like that. I'm not saying administration, but when the reason citizens come to speak to address issues, some issues is on the council, that's on the agenda, and they should address it. And sometimes we are a little cranky. Sometimes some people say some stuff out the way. I've sat in that chair where she sat there and was called some names or whatever. Everybody in this council has been said some stuff that shouldn't be said. But at the same time, the reason I think Lackawanna is such a unique thing is because the citizens do get to talk up here and do get to get off the cuff. Because without getting off the cuff a little bit, we wouldn't know that we wasn't gonna have no buses. We were gonna be a city without any buses. We wouldn't know that certain things was happening in our community because certain things happen before that can be on the agenda. I understand when people get off when they overstep their bounds. But we're bigger than that. We can handle that. I was also here when we had people that were sitting there bringing certain issues that was heated. But because we allow people to voice and concern and sometimes get a little off the agenda, it works. So I get a little my brisket when somebody talks about that, what other municipalities don't allow people to talk. That may work for them, but that wouldn't work for us. Because the citizens would not go for that. You know, we want to be able to voice our concerns and tell you stuff, whatever. And some stuff you tell us we don't like to hear. We may not agree with it, but you're telling us anyway not to hurt us, but protect us. When I say something to this council, and I'm going to make it clear, when I say something, when I come and speak, it's not personal. I'm not mad at you. If we disagree, you're not going to have to worry about me saying, you sir, that's not what I do. You know, but I have been where it hasn't been treated the same way. You know, I've been where actually I got those calls, but I let it go by because I think the role is to work with the city. You know, no, I'm a very stubborn pig about issues that affect my community because I walk it every day. I was walking before I was a councilman. I was walking when I became a councilman. I walk afterwards. I live in an area that we had major trouble. And Your Honor, you know that. And I remember when people were saying what we couldn't do. But I remember coming to this council and getting new people coming in. I got the highly respect for any council person up here. Council man, woman, who cares? Because you have a tough job. I'm not gonna always make you happy. You definitely not gonna always make me happy. But you work for me and the rest of the citizens of Lackawanna. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for having the time.
And thank you, John. And just to address what you just said, no one wants to take anybody's right to speak at a council meeting away, but there has to be some guidelines, some boundaries, and those will be enforced. It should be an agenda item, or if it's off the agenda, do like you do, send in a letter requesting to speak on a particular topic. That would be respected, and you'd have an opportunity to do that. In addition to that, if it's a hot button item, an issue that came up in the city, obviously people may be scared, they may be confused. That would be a good topic to have here too. But if you're gonna socialize and carry on a private conversation with somebody else, we can't even hear what you're saying, that's not acceptable. We have to take care of the business of the city in an orderly, productive, and expeditious manner. And I intend to carry that out as a city council president within those guidelines. So I hope everybody understands. People are not gonna be shouted down or whatever. That's not civil. But by the same token, we're all human beings. People, especially department heads, work a full day and they're here at 8 o'clock at night. They got families too. And if people are gonna come up here and be abusive to them, it's not happening on my watch. That's all I got to say. All right, on item number 16, with the thanks of the city council, I move to receive and file the letter from John Ingram.
Moretti, sir. A motion by Morano, second by Moretti, to receive and file. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Item number 17, Erica Schoen, resident, requests the city council consider a law similar to that of New York CLS RPAPL 711 number 6.
Morano moves to receive and file, refer to the law department for an opinion.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Morano, second by Anderson.
Can't hear him.
To receive and file, refer to the law department for an opinion. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. Number 18, Kimberly Smith, resident, requests city council approve the closing of Church Street between Gates and Wasson between noon and 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 2nd, 2022 for the First Ward kickoff the Summerfest.
Maflahe moves to approve the request and refer to the Director of Public Safety and DPW Commissioner.
Morano seconds.
Motion by Muflahi, second by Morano to approve request, refer to the Director of Public Safety and DPW Commissioner. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano?
Yes.
Carried 5-0. We have no tabled items that I'm aware of. Mr. Council President, referring old business.
Yes. Rick, if you could just give us a brief rundown on items number 1 and 2. 1 being proposed legislation addressing video conferencing for absent council members, and 2.
Okay, so number
Yep.
one, the council, I believe I
gave a memo maybe 2 meetings ago regarding video conferencing. There's a new statute in the pertaining to open meetings, which allows the city to have a meeting done via video conferencing, provided it's in a public place. I think I pointed out some of the requirements in the memo. Quite personally, I think the statute is very tough, and it's going to be more burdensome than it may be worth to do. You still have to do it in a public place. You have to make it. In other words, if 2 people wanted to be at the Senior Center Center and 3 people here, you could have a meeting via video conferencing. But outside of that, I really don't see the need for it. We're a small city. We try to accommodate and excuse people, such as we did today with Mr. Laxo. So again, if you're going to do it, we got to keep record of the meeting for I believe 5 years. We have to make it not only in a handicapped accessible facility, but I think we also have to have other disability type matters available. For instance, if somebody is hearing impaired or something like that, we might have to provide more video equipment or things of that nature. And like I said, I don't know if it's really worth it. Somebody can ask that the meeting be transcribed, and in which event you'd have to transcribe the entire meeting, including all the comments. So I think it's, and then on top of it, in the case of a state emergency or a city or a county emergency, if it was declared a state of emergency, you could go back to do a Zoom meeting. So it's something to consider, but I don't think we need it at this point.
And I think you made an excellent recommendation, Rick, and that is, this is not time sensitive. You could do this in the future if we needed it. And that you also indicated that maybe this being experimental at this point with the state, there may be some bugs that need to be ironed out first, and maybe we should see where those fall.
Correct, and I think the statute, when it was passed, is only a temporary statute, I believe. So it may be rescinded at some point, or it may be amended. So we'll kind of keep an eye on it. So that's so if anybody didn't get my memo on the video conferencing and they need another copy, just let me or Jeff know, and we'll get it to you. Or if they have any individual questions and you want to email me, let me know. Number 2, I did go back and I reviewed the auditor's report.
Rick, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Jeff had something he wanted to add.
I just wanted to touch on what Rick had to say, and I want to clear something up from a public perspective. Is a lot of people think that allowing the video conferencing would allow a meeting to occur if you were short a quorum in a public facility. You have to have a quorum to even have video conferencing. So you've got your 3 council members there. They can take action legally. I could see it if you only had 2 council members and the third one was going to be remote and you needed that person to be able to conduct the meeting, which I thought the legislation was going to cover because of the recent events with COVID. But in reading the legislation, you still have to have
A quorum
present,
at least at one public location.
right? So it doesn't really benefit the city, in my opinion, as far as moving on with city business.
So in the event like with me not being present at the last meeting, I could have physically live streamed and then connected through Zoom. That wouldn't have been an option, or won't be an option moving forward. It would just be an excuse.
Correct.
Yeah, and it wasn't an option when you were absent either.
Correct. So moving forward, that there's no gray area in the law written in the.
Not the way they do it.
Okay, so it's either you're here or you're not.
Or you're not,
right.
Okay.
Rick, and number 2?
And there's, in the future, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from participating in the meeting via Zoom in the work session, if she wanted to do that, but you would not be able to vote if the situation looked similar to the situation you recently had and it should arise again. And you were in, say, another state or in a private facility. You could still, if you wanted to, at least let people know that you're, there.
Joining in on the caucus?
Yeah, I think you could do that.
It's not the formal meeting, so.
The caucus, but you just can't vote.
Correct.
You
But
can't
to,
vote at the-
to,
at
to
the
speak
formal.
and to be part of the Q&A session and such,
Yeah.
that's probably something that we
That
would
might
have
be an
to, we would have to hardwire it though, where I'm able to do that from Gene, right?
Yeah.
You could do that.
All you gotta do is give her a passcode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
same as our Zoom meetings, you just.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
you would
good.
go to the public website and then pick up the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I would just keep that set up.
Okay. All right,
So,
very good.
Any other questions on that?
And on that, item number 2, the
Okay.
mandatory council.
Number 2 was the, I call it the garbage user fee audit. Specifically, this audit only addressed one aspect of our user fee. It didn't address all our garbage fee program. It only pertains to, I believe, the private portion of our statute where if somebody wants, somebody who's normally exempt wants a pickup or something like that, we have a procedure for that. So the audit didn't direct the council to amend any of the laws that we currently have on the books. And Mr. DeSantis and, was it you that responded? Who was?
So it's Gene.
Gene had to respond for something. So they responded, and in the state, I think those responses were given as part of the audit. But there was a line in there that said that the council, something about the council responding. I did pull the statute, and the statute says that it's discretionary if you want to respond. So, but I do think after reading that and talking to Tony a little bit, I think what we just really need to do is sit down, review the law, make sure the procedure is a little bit tighter, because everything's done by emails and this and that. I mean, maybe we should have a form, a paper trail, so to speak, for these, for situations that come up where there's a private pickup.
Then do we need to notify the state that we're taking that next step?
Well, if the council wanted to, I think you should, or you could. You could. If you want, I'll draft a response and I'll give it to the council members, and you guys can critique it and change it, and you can send it under your letterhead. But I think if we just tell them that we're reviewing our statutes, we're reviewing our procedures, and we do intend to streamline the procedure or to make it a little bit more a more responsible procedure, so that because there are situations that come up, like, and you know how it is. You're out on the street, somebody calls you and they say, "Hey, I need a pickup here, or why didn't the truck pick this up?" And then somebody calls Tony, blah, 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 and before you know it, things are being done, or they can't be done because it's a private residence. So we gotta make sure we have a procedure to respond to that one quickly, but have a procedure that's followed so that if there is a bill involved, the appropriate party pays their fair share.
And any idea how soon we need to respond?
I could draft something like this week. Okay. And then I think Tony and I will sit down and we'll talk to Gene as well and see what we need to do, and we'll kind of report to the council on what the current procedure is and if we recommend some changes to it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other council member have any old business or table items they wish to address at this time? Now I make a motion to adjourn.
A motion by Morano, second by Muflahi to adjourn the meeting. Muflahi?
Yes.
Anderson? Yes. Moretti?
Yes.
Sirdike?
Yes.
Morano? Yes. Carried 5-0.
Thank you, everyone.